and I was trying to search around because
Sure.
I was just looking up different things on you. So how you were talking about, before we get into more of the football topics, the football related topics, you were talking about how more you got into, well, obviously right for the Cincy Jungle. And by the way, if you guys want to go check that out, both links are in the description, but you write for the Cincy Jungle. How did that job first come about? Did you know any friends, and did you start it? Well, you just
No,
work for them, correct? Or
right. I did not start it.
okay.
So a guy named Josh Kirkendall that I used to work for, he was the managing editor of CincyJungle.com, and I was writing for another website called Who Dey Fans that a friend of mine ran. And he approached us about, hey, do you guys want to come work for us? And my friend didn't want to, but I wanted to. So I started then. And then, like Josh and I really worked really closely together. Like, we hired new guys and stuff like that. And, so I ended up, like I said, kind of as an intern for college because the
Right.
journalism program at UC, you have to have 2 internships. So that's what I did. And
Okay.
then I just kind of started working from there for them. And then I have a daytime job too. I work in finance. So, but I worked until the kids were born. I was a full-time writer until I needed,
Okay.
a more stable income with benefits.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
So,
And as well as you said you taught. Well, in your bio, it looked you teach football for the
yeah,
youth. How
I
did that come about
coached.
as well?
Well, my son,
Okay.
I've been a coach, youth basketball, baseball, football, and football coach. My son started off in t-ball, and I coached him, and then COVID came around and kind of shut basketball down and everything like that. So there was like an off year, but I'm the assistant baseball coach, head basketball coach, and then his assistant football coach. So he's getting to the age now. He's got basically 1 more year under me, and then he moves on to like middle school where he plays for the school. So I'm just doing it just until he's moved on, and then I'll probably be done because it takes a ton of time. I mean, I like it. I really do like it. I enjoy it. But yeah, I don't know if I would do it if it wasn't for my son. So
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's cool because when you see, the reason why I wanted to ask you that question is when you see, people getting into youth football and
mhm.
just teaching that younger generation, it's always interesting to find out why and everything
Sure.
else. So I was kind of interested about
Yeah.
that. But let's move on. Reacting to the NFL trade deadline, biggest winners and losers. It wasn't like a huge deadline, and the biggest shock to me, no Devontae Adams getting traded,
Right.
which was crazy. Here's my question to you relating more to the Bengals. I know that your guys' guard position isn't great. I could look up the guy's name right now.
Cordell Volson and Alex Kappa.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, what do you think of, like, because I think Ted Karras,
Ted Karras.
however
Yeah.
you
He's a
say his name,
center.
Karras, he wasn't great either. So, is it a little bit shocking that you guys didn't go and get an offensive lineman at the deadline, although they're kind of hard to find midway through the season?
I don't think so. I wasn't surprised that they didn't make any moves at all. That's just not really their thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the last time. And the last player for player trade, the last time they got a player was BJ Hill. And that was a great trade because they sent Billy Price to the New York Giants. And I don't know where he is
Right.
now, but he's never been. But, BJ Hill has been a great addition next to DJ Reader on the interior defensive line. But this is not their thing. So AJ Green's last full year with Cincinnati, the writing was on the wall. Everybody knew this is AJ
Mm-hmm.
Green's last year with Cincinnati. He's not, they're not going to extend him. They're not going to tag him. They're moving on. They're going to have, we brought in Jamar Chase. We already had T. Higgins.
Right.
And teams were inquiring about AJ Green at the trade deadline. The Bengals they had the number 6 overall pick the next year. They weren't good. Joe Burrow was
Mm-hmm.
already hurt his rookie year. And Mike Brown famously said, we're not in the business of making other teams good. So no, we're not going to do it. So they kept AJ Green. AJ Green walked for free. I think there was a compensatory pick, I'm sure. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's not their thing. They don't do anything in the trade deadline. They think that the guys to win a Super Bowl are in that room. And based on what they've done over the last 2 years, I can't really argue with them. They've had a
Right.
lot of success. They've gone to 2 consecutive conference championship games and 1 Super Bowl. So if they don't think that they need anyone else in the locker room, then I'm inclined to believe them.
I
So,
I'll say another loser at the deadline, other than the Bengals, was Davante Adams. I mean,
yeah,
the thing, it's like to me, I completely see his side. He's wasting his time in Las Vegas, really. I mean, and the thing is like, do the Las Vegas Raiders really? Why didn't they? This is how I think like that organization is so like effed up. I'm gonna say it
yeah,
because it's just like, do they really think they can actually contend? Why weren't they big? Because the Washington Commanders, say what you will, I mean, they basically sold half of their defensive line or all their good players on their defensive, well, two of their good players on their defensive line, but at least they were getting picks. I mean,
right.
what are you doing if you're the Raiders? What are you doing? Because you know that you're not going to contend for a Super Bowl. Your team
Right.
doesn't have the quarterback. It doesn't even have the coach. So it's like, what are you doing? Because you could have gotten, I guess you could still trade Davante Adams after this next year, but you could have gotten, I mean, what, a
Oh, yeah,
first at the,
easily,
I
easily.
mean, and I was about to post something today on Twitter. It's like the 49ers should trade Debo Samuel and like a third or fourth for Davante Adams. Like,
Yeah,
that I was actually going to post that. I didn't do that, but it's just, I don't know. That's one of the losers for me. And then, the Commanders, now they have to rebuild a part of their team that is
right.
very, that was strong. The one part of their
Yeah.
team that was strong. So
As far as Devontae Adams goes, I think the thing that surprises me the most is when they recruited him from Green Bay.
yeah, yeah,
And I know they said, "Oh, I'm excited to play with Derek Carr again because we played together in
hmm
college." And I kinda wanna know if they just I had to be clear to him and to everyone that Derek Carr wasn't in their future plans because, I just don't
yeah,
understand why he came to the Raiders if he knew that Derek Carr was gonna be leaving. You know what I mean? So, yeah,
right,
I don't know. I don't know why you'd keep him with Jimmy G. They're not gonna do anything. So,
right.
I don't know. I mean, again, just some teams just don't, they have a way of doing business and they don't wanna deviate from that. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and some of the players like Rasul Douglas only went for what, it was a third round. It was like a
Yeah, there
fifth,
were a
and
lot
then
of
in exchange for a third. There's a lot of guys going for cheap, really
Yeah, there was
cheap.
a lot of I was really surprised that Chase Young went for mid-round picks. So, I figured he would
Right,
command at least a second,
third.
but, yeah,
And,
something.
and I know we don't have a topic about this, and we'll move on, but I do want to say I didn't really like that trade from the 49ers. I don't think it was a super big position of need. I know that the other side of the defensive line isn't great, but I mean, we could have gotten, I mean, I don't know if the not Bills, Bears were ever willing to actually trade Roshan Johnson. I don't know how much or how whatever, Jalen Johnson, I think it's the
Mhm.
cornerback from them. I don't know how much they were willing to trade him for and what the cutoff point the 49ers were willing to give the Bears, until they said, no, it's not worth it anymore. And so maybe the Bears were asking for too much for a great corner, but it's like the 49ers didn't address a position of need. I mean, offensive line would have been, obviously offensive line is really hard to trade for at this point in
Right.
the season. But I mean, even cornerback, it's like our cornerbacks, as you saw in that last game, can't play man to man. Isaiah Oliver don't even get me started on him, our nickel corner. But it's just, it was so confusing to me why the heck we made that trade. I mean, it's a good trade. And
Yeah.
maybe if that's the only move we could have done, then you know what, do it. But I would have rather us gone other ways. So,
I
and
get it.
it
I
might not
mean,
even be it might be a 10-game rental because he's up for an extension
yeah.
next year. So,
I mean, they're in a position I know they lost 3 in a row. I mean, they're gonna make noise in January, February. It's
yeah.
just, it's gonna happen. So, they got a great player at a premium position, and they got him cheap. And if it's 10 10
That's true.
10 game rental and they win the Super Bowl because Chase Young is dragging quarterbacks down the backfield, then it'll be worth it. But but, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was kinda surprised at the compensation, but, that's a good move. Now you got Chase Young on the other side of Nick Bosa. I mean, that's a pretty scary duo.
Yeah, right. Well, Joe Burrow is back, and it looks like the team is rolling. They've obviously, what is it, 3 straight now, I believe?
3 straight.
Is it
Yep.
3 straight? 3
Mhm.
straight, yeah. Is there any threat that you guys see in the AFC stopping you guys?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the Chiefs are always there. The Bengals and the Chiefs have a pretty good rivalry going on now. Um,
Right.
so the Chiefs, the Dolphins offense has been lights out. So I think the Chiefs, the Dolphins, the Bills. We play the Bills on Sunday night, and I
Mhm.
know that they've
Mhm.
kind of been inconsistent and back and forth, but you can't put a price tag on a great quarterback in the NFL. There's only maybe 10 of them, and Josh Allen is
Mhm.
one of them. He can do some pretty crazy things. So yeah, the AFC isn't, coming into the season, you had all these, you got the Chargers, you got the Chiefs, you got the Bills, you got the Dolphins, you got the Raiders now, and all these different teams. Some of them have disappointed, and the Bengals are included in that in the beginning of the season. Um, but I think that the big teams left that are the biggest obstacles for them are definitely the Chiefs, and then I would rank Miami and Buffalo right after the Chiefs.
I think as far as Miami goes, I mean, they're a I feel like you guys match up really well with them. If Jalen Ramsey can return to form, that's great. But my question is, will he? Like, that's the biggest unknown. If he
Yeah.
does, then I think they match up a little bit more with you guys. But if not, it's like their offensive line, I don't know is how long Teron Armstead is out for. I don't think it's long term. I know he was out the last few games. I'm not sure if he came
Right.
back, but I don't
I
think
have no
he's
idea.
been. Yeah, I would have to look that one up. But that's another one. It's like the Bengals, your guys' defensive coordinator, correct me if I'm wrong, is really like
Yes,
it was
he's great.
impressive what he did. His ability to, you know, draw up blitzes, pressures, whatever, and just create that pressure is very impressive and make it easier on your corners. And it's just if the Dolphins, I just have questions about like Jalen Ramsey and how in the middle of the season you're asking him to come back and be a high level corner. I don't think so. And so it's a bad matchup for the Dolphins, really, the Bengals. But Jalen Phillips, he came back from an injury, and if he can get back to true form, that's a really good defensive line there.
Yep.
So that could be, I mean, I don't know. I think there, even with the Chiefs, it's like the the biggest thing with the Chiefs was Travis Kelce, but I don't, the Chiefs this year, I think, took a major downgrade because of their wide receiver position. And just, I think they still have a massive hole that it's being kind of masked over by just playing easier competition so far in this
I
season, which is their
agree
wide
in
receiver.
general. I agree, but I think their defense is much improved from where it was
Much
last year. I think
improved.
that'll
Yeah.
compensate a little bit. But yeah, I don't think that, I mean, if you look at the divisions, the Bengals in the AFC North is everybody's the worst team is 4-3. That's
Right.
the Bengals.
Right. It is tight.
And then you have, in the AFC West, you got the Raiders who are struggling. You got the Chargers who aren't as good as everyone thought they would be. I always forget who else. I always
What
forget a
about
team.
the Ravens? What, because you said Bills and
Yeah,
Dolphins and Chiefs.
I
Is
left them
there
out.
any threat there? Okay, okay.
I no, I absolutely do. I left them out on accident. I should have included them. Yeah, I absolutely
Okay.
believe that the Ravens are a contender. Um, I mean, just the stuff that Lamar Jackson can do, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And you can game plan for him all you want, but stopping him is a whole different story. So,
Right.
the Bengals have already lost one. They're 0-2 in the division, so they have 4 games left, 2 against Steelers and 1 against the Browns, 1 against the Ravens. Hopefully, they can kinda even that up, but the Ravens are definitely they're gonna be tough. They're gonna be tough to get through.
Yeah. Calvin's Hobbs says it's a rental. This is about Chase Young. It's a
Sure.
rental position. If Young walks next season, they could get a comp pick. Need more pressure on the QB to lessen pressure in the secondary. Yeah, but my only response to this is if you have a good enough quarterback and receiving core, which is, I mean, Jalen Hurts, he's shown the last few weeks, in my opinion, that his intermediate game has gotten a lot better. I mean, if you have a good quarterback and a few pretty good receivers, which a lot of top tier teams do, then there is no reason why. Like the defensive line almost doesn't even matter if you have the short game, because when you have a good quarterback and a few good receivers, you have to play press man to man, and the 49ers just can't do that. Otherwise, every single competent quarterback is going to beat you short pass game.
I think that also might be another reason they went after Chase Young is if you think about if we're going to be playing against these teams with great receiver cores and we can't play press man, then the next best option is to get to the quarterback as quick as possible. Nothing deep, don't give him time to set up. So, and that could be their thinking too. You already got a great edge rusher in Nick Bosa. Now you had another Ohio State guy there. So both of those guys, I mean, they could be nightmares coming off the edge, especially if you have someone who can step up in the middle.
The AFC North is the toughest division at the moment. It's the only division where all teams have a winning record. Yeah, I mean, when you guys had a bye last week, you basically, I mean, you can't lose a bye technically, but you kind of lost that bye because
all the other teams won. So. Every other team in the division won, But this week, luckily, I mean, when the Bengals beat the Niners, the Steelers lost and the Browns lost. So that helped a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Moving on, the defensive performance that the Bengals put up, I guess I was touching on that performance a few minutes ago. Is it more, did you see any problems that you guys fixed? Do you think you've improved in that area since, the cornerback position has been a little bit shaky? Have you improved on that? Or did the 49ers just really suck? I'll say it flat out.
No, I think the Bengals have a great defense. So the cornerback position, they lost Chidobe Awuzie halfway through the season last year to injury. And they lost, Eli Apple was here. He started, and I know a lot of people trash Eli Apple, and he's not the greatest cornerback in all time, but he absolutely played his best football here in Cincinnati. 100% was absolutely integral to getting them, postseason wins. But they upgraded that position. They drafted DJ Turner in the second round out of Michigan. They signed, they signed Sidney Jones the fourth, I think. They signed Sidney Jones in free agency. And then Chidobe Awuzie came back, from injury, and he started the season. So this past week they started DJ Turner opposite Cam Taylor-Britt. And then so Cam Taylor-Britt on the other side, big physical corner, started almost all year last year with Chidobe Awuzie's injury, and he's having kind of a breakout year this year. He's great. He's a big physical guy. And then you got Mike Hilton, the slot corner, who might be one of the best run defense and blitzing slot corners, and he's like having an extra linebacker. So speaking of linebackers, Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson were both extended this offseason. I think the Bengals maybe have the best duo of coverage linebackers in the NFL. They both had an interception. They both, and Logan Wilson almost had 2, and he's got 10 interceptions in his 4 years, which is crazy for a linebacker. Absolutely crazy really for a linebacker.
Yeah.
So the one he got on Sunday was his 10th. They have, so the 2 safeties they have are athletic guys, Nick Scott and Dax Hill. But
I'm a Michigan fan, so I know, sorry to interrupt, but DJ Turner and Dax Hill, I know very well. So,
So the Bengals definitely took, when it comes to their secondary, they took the approach of speed kills, which is something that we saw from like the Legion of Boom several years ago out in Seattle, is they just got some just top end crazy speed in the secondary.
Yeah, right.
Nick Scott, Dax Hill, DJ Turner, Cam Taylor-Britt, they're all, Cam Taylor-Britt's fast, but DJ Turner, Dax Hill, and Nick Scott, they're all 3 are just speed demons for sure. And then the big thing though is our defensive line. So DJ Reader is the best run-stopping nose tackle in the NFL, 100%. No one will ever be able to convince me otherwise. BJ Hill has been a great complementary player next to him, but then Sam Hubbard is just an every down good player. He's good at run defense. He's a pretty good pass rusher. But Trey Hendrickson, our other defensive end, is playing the best football of his career. He's got 8 sacks on the season already. He's on pace for like 19.5 or something like that. That's NFL defensive MVP numbers,
Yeah.
So it's just everyone's playing lights out, and it all kind of came together against the Niners. And it doesn't hurt, it doesn't help them that they were without their starting left tackle. It doesn't help them that they were without Debo. You know what I mean? And they kind of came
Yeah.
on at the end, especially when George Kittle got more involved. If they had been
Mhm.
doing that in the beginning of the game, would have been much more. But no, they played a good game. The Niners, I don't know. I don't watch the Niners all the time, so I don't know if this was a down game for them or if it was a good game for them. I suspect it was a down game for them, but the Bengals
Mhm.
defense is not to be messed with. I mean, they're not to be, um, underestimated because they're very, very good. And Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator, I think is one of the
Did
best in the
isn't he
league.
a guy, right? Correct?
Do what?
Didn't you didn't your defensive coordinator, didn't you guys like isn't he recent, right? That you
No, no,
hired
no.
him?
No, he
No.
came in the
Okay.
same year as Zach Taylor. So he came in
Okay. Okay. Okay.
after the 2020, same, all or both coordinators, Brian
Mhm.
Callahan and Lou
That's
Anarumo.
good. You have rapport
Oh,
because
yeah,
I think the biggest
absolutely.
problem with the Niners is that, you know, every year we have a new defensive coordinator, and it's
Yeah.
kind of starting to catch up to us a little bit
Right,
more
sure.
because the style that Steve Wilkes is bringing in, he used to coach a different style than what D'Amico Ryans and Robert Saleh did.
Mhm.
He's also older. He's not on the field. He's in the box. So it's definitely a little bit of more changes and a lot less flair to our defense, in my opinion. So go ahead.
Right.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was just gonna say I thought for sure when they went to the Super Bowl with, I mean, obviously Joe Burrow played great all season, and that's why they went to the Super Bowl, is the quarterback position. But the defense played great, and they're a big part of getting there. They only lost to the Rams by 3. Um,
Mhm.
I thought after that Lou Anarumo was gonna be a head coach, and then they went to the AFC Championship game. They lost that game by 3. And I thought, well, for sure, Lou Anarumo will be the head coach, and he's still here. So I'm not complaining. I'm very happy about it. But I 100% expect him to be a head coach next year. If he's not,
Mm.
I'll be thrilled, but I'm expecting it. So,
Who has overperformed in your eyes um after I mean starting this year? You were talking
yeah,
about Cam Taylor Britt. You said
yeah,
that he started all of last year. To
most of
me,
last year, yeah.
I had heard of him. I had heard of him out of college, but he's a guy who's kind of like I honestly super underrated. Never have heard of him, and then I watched him on Sunday and I was like, wow, this guy is really good. So
Yeah,
he's probably, I mean, in Bengals' eyes, he probably isn't like an underperforming guy because you were probably expecting it. But for me, that would be a guy who I watched on Sunday and I was like, wow, like
sure.
he had a
So
good game. So,
the guys that are like performing over what was expected, I think that a lot of people expected Cam Taylor Britt, to have a breakout year.
mhm.
Trey Hendrickson's a premier pass rusher, has been in the league for a long time. So I don't think this is a surprise to anybody. Um, Andre Yosevich he has 2 touchdowns so far. He had a touchdown against the Niners. He's a
Mm,
rookie. So the fact that he's been able to do that has been exciting. He's a 6th round pick out of Princeton. Um, I had never heard of him when we selected him, and it was just an extra pick that we had when we traded back with the Chiefs, I think in the 3rd round.
mhm.
Um, but he has 2 touchdowns. He's got just crazy speed. He's 6'2", 215, and he's like a decathlon athlete or something like that. So, but
Hmm.
obviously he's a good route runner too, and a red zone threat. So that's been exciting to see that come around. I don't know. I think that everyone, is pretty much playing. What? Actually, I'll say no one. Jonah Williams was our left tackle
Mm,
last
mhm.
year. He struggled. They signed Orlando Brown Jr. in the offseason, and they moved Jonah Williams to right tackle, and he's been playing really well. I'm happy for him. So he's been playing really well. Um, the defense is doing their thing. I'm pretty happy with
Yeah.
what they've got. So yeah, I'd say that the 2 that I can think of off the top of my head are Jonah Williams and whoever the first one I said. I just totally blanked on who I even
What
said.
about Irwin, Trenton Irwin? I know that he
Yeah.
made one really good catch
Yep.
on I think it was 3rd down during the game or whatever. I think it was on a slant, and he's kind of an interesting guy that
Yeah.
honestly, well, and what you were talking about, Iasova, like the ability for those, it opens up so much for those
Yep.
guys with just Jamar Chase and whatever. So
Sure.
I mean, and the fact that they're even able, like they're getting open, and then Joe Burrow's also targeting them as well. It's impressive because you have so many weapons. It's like you have 5 or 6 guys that can catch the
Right.
ball, and it's nice because Mixon as well is
Right.
getting finally starting to come on, and he was kind of a disappointment, but now you're finally starting to find that run game and get back to the Bengals football that you are, and I mean, the defense was underrated, I think. I mean, in the rest of the league's eyes, and now that if they've really improved and they can compete with the best offenses in the NFL, that was their biggest problem, really. I mean, wouldn't you agree? The Bengals' biggest problem. Now you guys are looking like more Super Bowl contenders than ever. So
I think that the biggest issue early in the season was Joe Burrow's health. I mean, his calf injury limiting him what he could do. You saw him evade pressure, move around in the pocket. He called his own number a couple times. He scrambled. That's a big part of his game. And when you can't, it's like the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, he was playing with concrete shoes on. He just couldn't move. And that really killed the whole offense. And it runs through Joe Burrow. It's a passing offense. It's never been a big running offense. Joe Mixon is there to complement the run game. I don't think the Bengals ever intended to lean on it. It's just not what the team's designed to do. Not what the offense is designed to do. But now that he's healthy, I think the sky's the limit. As far as Trenton Irwin, he had some important catches. I like Trenton Irwin. So we had the Trents last year. We had Trenton Irwin and Trent Taylor. Both very similar style players. Trent Taylor's a special teamer, he's a punt returner. They're
he used
both
to actually play for the 49ers, so I know him quite well.
All right, yeah. So then, they both kind of similar build slot guys, and then they with Josivash coming in and Charlie Jones coming in, another rookie, he's on IR right now. They had to get rid of one Taylor, they had to get rid of one Trent, so they dropped Trent Taylor, and he's in Chicago now. But Trent Irwin is reliable. He's a good slot receiver. This will be Tyler Boyd's last year in Cincinnati. So I'm sure that Trenton Irwin and Charlie Jones will kind of take over that role.
Right.
But Trent Irwin's a reliable guy. He's really good at reading a defense and knows where to sit down, finds a soft spot in his zone. And when you got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on either side of you, your slot guys get open a lot. So when they run 4 receivers, a lot of times they put in Trenton Irwin next to Tyler Boyd. And he just kind of gets forgotten about. It kind of gets lost out there, and Joe Burrow knows it. So yeah, he's been a fun guy to watch develop here for sure. And everybody in Cincinnati loves him. I mean, he's just a, awesome story. So it's good stuff.
Before we get you out of here, because I know, you have things to get to, what are some, they don't have to have like high records, but overrated teams in your opinion? My overrated team still is the Cowboys. I know that after they lost to the 49ers, people tempered expectations, but they're a team that, like, the 49ers got better at the deadline, obviously.
Right.
The Eagles got Contavious. Well, no, they traded Contavious Street, got some picks, obviously got Bayard, whatever, from the Titans, which was a huge trade, got him for really cheap, one of the best safeties. Then you had the Lions, who made a small move, which I think is actually pretty good. Donovan Peoples-Jones got him for pretty cheap from the Browns, which, I mean, the Lions need more depth at receiver. I mean, the rich get richer. Now, I still think they have major problems on their defense, and they've had a lot of injuries there. I don't think they have a lot of depth. So the Lions are definitely still a problem, they still have problems. But the Cowboys, it's like, it always seems that, like, they stay afloat. They don't really make any, like, super splashy moves, and they still have a good record. They're obviously overrated to me. And then the Bills, they really, the loss of Matt Milano was tough for them, and they're still considered, I guess, a contender, but they're obviously losing. And I have my major questions if, they're on kind of a downward spiral as the 49ers. I still have my questions about, can they even rebound? I have more faith in the 49ers to rebound than the Bills because of how their defenses look. So,
yeah. As far as overrated team, I do agree with the Cowboys. I hate the Cowboys so much.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And I just every single year they get a lot, they play well for a while and they blow up, they beat up on teams they should beat, and then they'll lose to big teams. They'll get in the playoffs and they'll lose in the wild card weekend. It's just the same team
Yeah.
every year. And everybody loves them. As far I think the Chiefs are really good. I think their defense helps them. They have a good defense this year. The other teams in the AFC that I think might be a little bit overrated, the Browns have a really good defense, but whatever's happening with Deshaun Watson with his injury and the fact that he's not playing, and they were talking about bringing in another backup quarterback, the whole thing's kind of a mess, So I think I could see them having that defense can't keep doing this the whole season.
Right.
And then in the NFC, I think the Eagles are really, really good. I think they're legit.
Yeah.
The Seahawks are good. 49ers are good. The Lions are really good. I know that if Kirk Cousins was healthy, I would say they're overrated.
Vikings.
But
Okay.
right, the Vikings are overrated if Kirk Cousins was healthy, but I feel like now saying that they're overrated is low-hanging fruit. That's pretty much it. I think, with Kirk Cousins, Vikings are a little bit overrated. Cowboys and the Browns.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I'd have to agree with you. You made a good point about the Browns, but before we get out of here, advertise your show and what you do a little bit more, and obviously who you write for, and both links are in the description. So go check that out, everyone.
Yeah. I write for cincyjungle.com. It's SB Nation Cincinnati Bengals site. I have a weekly column that goes up on Tuesdays called Tuesday Trenches. And then I do news and stuff. I do the, matchups to watch every week. I have a weekly show called a weekly show called 3 and Out with myself and Kevin Brown. We host that on the Orange and Black Insider, which is Cincy Jungle's SB Nation, Cincy Jungle's YouTube channel. And then it's also wherever you stream podcasts, you can find Orange and Black Insider. So that's kind of my thing. I really appreciate you having me. This was fun. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Clap it up for Jason Garrison. Guys, we'll be probably back tomorrow with a Niners show. I did want to break down a little bit of what happened and kind of the defense since we just played the Bengals. I did want to break that down a little bit more. I'll be back, obviously, like I said, tomorrow, either by myself or with a guest. Right now, things are pending. And then I do have a big interview coming up with a former NFL player. I'll let you guys know about that. So that's kind of what's coming up for me. As for the show, or tonight, I guess, go have a good rest of your night, everyone. And we're out. See ya.